I write from the point of view of formal axiology, which is a system of thought developed by a guy named Robert S. Hartman. And he defined the word good and the structure of values. And with that knowledge of the structure of values, value situations can be analyzed to see where there are value consistencies and inconsistencies.
Huh. And since we're atheists, could you explain how you would use that system to evaluate the concept of God?
Well, I'm glad you said concept, because that's the first thing, the first word I would use to describe the idea. And since it's a concept, it depends on who's defining it and how they define it. So I don't have any favorite definition for that concept. In fact, I call myself actually a joyful atheist because I don't have to worry about this old guy in the sky who's going to get me when I die, and so I have this great relief. I was raised a Catholic, but have long since set that aside, and I've been because I'm scientific minded, I've been an atheist for a long time.
That's very great. So, when did you become an atheist, and what was the point that made that solid for you?
Oh well, it was a long process. I went to a Catholic elementary school in Chicago, and while I was I think around 8th grade, the Pope said, it's okay to eat meat on Friday. And that just shocked me, because before that time, anybody who ate meat on Friday, your soul would go to hell and burn for eternity. And then I thought, my God, what about all these people who ate meat yesterday?
Oh, wow.
And their soul's going to burn in eternity, but today it's okay to eat meat, and this guy in Rome can make that decision? And that just started me questioning all religion and all religion as a source of morality and God and all that stuff. And so it wasn't after that, it was a gradual process where I went through a phase of being agnostic, not sure, and being a deist, like maybe there's God is nature or something like that, and finally that God is nothing more than a character in books, and a mythical character in books, a superhero, and that's it. So he's not my superhero, and he's other people's superhero, and I don't think about it a lot.
Well, that's really great. So that brings up to me, I'm definitely an axiological atheist, and it brings up to me, if you understand value as a real thing in the world that we can assess, we can utilize, and we can then understand how to, in a sense, delve our morality or build our morality from or connected to value, then things like concepts that don't have a real substance, a real dignity, a real value, a real rights, a real worth, or anything. I mean, that to me means automatically that it's irrelevant, like you talk about. So to me, that's an apatheist. An apatheist is a type of atheism, because once you don't believe in a God, everyone's an atheist. So in a sense, most people say they're agnostic. They don't believe in a God, thus they are, in a sense, like de facto atheists. Because atheism is, do you believe? Well, if you say, I don't know, well, then you don't believe. It's automatically just the property of belief.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyways, that's beside the point. So what I'm saying is I do believe that, for me, an axiological atheist would start at apatheism. In other words, why would I even care about your fantasy characters? It's not relevant. How does that affect my real morality? Now, how does that affect how I treat my children? How does that affect how I, whether or not there's a God? It should not be the thing. And then if there is a God and it is not pro-human, why would I want it to be part of me? Mm-hmm. And to me, to be pro-human would be to support human equality and human liberation, human freedom, human dignity. How can I have all those things if a God can tell me I don't have rights or what my rights are? Then I don't have dignity, because obviously it can be violated at any moment by the God's will. I don't have a real will, because in a sense, it's either I do it or I'm punished. So there's not really any other second choice. So it's, it's not like you could love the God, or you could be, your own person. Either choice you make, but loving the God, you get the benefit of, like you said, a superhero. Yeah, but it's not that. You'd have to do the God's will, supposedly, or else you're tortured, die, suffer. Yeah. So to me, it automatically means it's an anti-humanist. To me, the God concept is anti-humanist, because it says that my will is better than human.
Yeah, I agree with that. That in religion, God is more important than people. Mm-hmm. And so people are necessarily reduced in value, and that starts a whole lot of problems right there, because if you're not so hot because God is supreme, and if you're not so hot, then anything I do is justifiable, and wars or exploitation, labor exploitation, gender exploitation. What's the difference? Because you're nothing but an inferior to God. So if once you reject God, then you expose yourself to all moral issues, and you have to make decisions now. If there's no God, what's going to be important?
Yeah, well, that definitely brings us up to the other thing I wanted to do with our topic is to get into the actual axiology and philosophical things. So the topic of what I wanted to address is basically philosophic axiology, which is what I mainly use, which is value theory, and then scientific axiology, which I use a lot of precepts from, but I don't follow 100%, which is formal axiology, which is, I know what you said you do. And then axiological atheism, which can be any of the above. It just means that you're an axiologist in a sense and an atheist, which is what both of us are. And then there's basically what I want to address is atheistic or naturalistic morality, which is I think what we both do. And so I thought the best way to be address this would be to take the challenge head on from, a religious philosopher wanting to say that, we can't do morality in a sense without God and religion, or Christianity particularly. So he lists these as questions for atheists having a standard of morality, because he thinks that if we want to say we do, that we have to defend it, which I'm fine to defend it. So the person that gave these questions is Matt Schlick. For anyone who doesn't know, he's a president and founder of Christian Apologetics Research Ministry. And Matt earned his bachelor's degree also in social science from Irvine, California. Anyways, he has a master's in divinity. Anyways, he has. We can go on and on about him. All I wanted to say is, so you get the point that he feels he can give the best challenge. So that's why we're going to take him on. Number one, he says, objective standard. Do you have objective standards of morality by which you can judge whether or not something is morally right or wrong? And then I added to that, is morality subjective, objective, absolute, or relative to you? And then you can answer it, then I'll answer it.
All right. Well, first of all, I like your term, atheist, axiological atheist.
Right.
Because if you become an atheist, then you're confronted, like I said before, with all the questions of axiology.
Right.
what's valuable, and what are the proportions of value or relations of value, and those are axiological problems. So just by becoming an atheist, you become an axiologist at the same time. As to there's a lot of things you said there, so I'll just take one word, which is the objectivity.
Right.
I don't believe in objective knowledge, and I don't believe in objective morality. For me, people are responsible for what morality they develop and live by. And so one of the key points for morality is to be committed to a system. Christians are committed to a system, the system of Christianity and however that's defined. And in order to have any kind of morality which has a public effect, which is different than a person's individual morality, but a public effect requires commitment to the principles that define the morality. So there's no morality if everybody dies. There's not going to be any morality there, right? There's going to be a universe, there's going to be air, water, and that stuff with no humans, but there's not going to be any morality, because morality is a human concern and really is an essential element of human culture. So there's not an objective morality. Objective morality means it's there after everybody's dead. And a Christian might say that because God is the source of morality, and so everybody's dead and God's still there, so morality's still there. But if you don't have any God up there, if everybody's dead, there's no morality. So forget. I don't buy into the objectivity argument at all.
Okay. And I will say that first, let me just explain what I see morality. When the word morality to me, I will say to me, is an overarching sub-heading of all the genuses that come under it. In other words, values to me then is the next, or the core thing closest to what the morality is. All things that we then say become moral start at what we presuppose is its value. So to me, an axiologist is a person who is aware that there is a necessity to identify, to classify, and then utilize this presupposition of value in a way that's not haphazard. Because most people, they just haphazardly value things here or here. Where we stop, is it value? What is its value? Where does its relation play? What does that mean? And so it puts a bunch of core things. Then from that, like foundation, which they try to say their foundation is God, our foundation would be like the analyzing, the rationalism, the empiricism. It's the axiological facts that are involved. And then, so that's first off, I would just want to clarify that. Values go first before any morality can be done, to me. The next thing is then morals. And I'd classify morals different than I classify ethics. Morals to me are your personal decisions of how you personally live your life. Like when someone says the thing of virtue ethics. Virtue ethics is do what's virtuous. But in a sense, that's a personal moral. You can't push virtue on other people in a sense. What you do is you hold them to accountability for not violating others. That's not virtue, though. But so then there's ethics, which ethics is the social. It involves other people. And to me, this is why there's a such thing as a business ethics and not business morals. There never is. They teach ethics in college to everybody. They don't teach morals because they understand, to me, without maybe understanding it, I haven't heard it said that often, is that there is a difference between morals and ethics, and the difference is personal is morals, and ethics is social. It's with everybody else. It's the involvement. This is really important to me because there's a confusion. All religion usually gives is morals, but it tries to say that it can use these personal morals to become this absolute universal social ethics. which that can't be, because they're not grounded on a social ethic. They're grounded on a personal will, the will of the deity, the will of the one person, the leader, the whatever. So yeah, ethics to me and moral is different. So then I also have a problem when people say objective, because I think objective really has to be classified. I use objective when I say there's an objective fact. It means objectively that outside of myself a thing can be true. But the proposition can also be true through logic, which is why I use value theory. Because I can look at a proposition and say it's good and make a judgment in and of itself. In other words, its usefulness. Because I think that there's sometimes is normative ethics, then there's things that are not normative. And they get into this theoretical ethics about possibilities and stuff. All that really is still, to me, attaching to the core, what is the value? And see, if I ask you, do you value humans? Your question to me should be, why should I? And what value do humans potentially have? Why does that make them better than others? And to me, I think that so those are all questions that we should have to be able, in a sense, have some sort of an objective answer. In other words, if you and me both say humans have worth because they have an advanced intellect or an advanced emotional structure, or that because that they're aware of time ratios, as other animals in a sense could be not. So it could, or you could base it on pain, the fact that we're feeling beings. See, that's an objective fact. We're a feeling being. Now that doesn't mean I agree with you. Does not mean I think that morality is always objective. That would be the most insane thing ever. An objective appraisal of human ability to maximize choices would immediately show that we're fallible as hell. So even if there could somehow together as a group make some objective, every single moral was objective, I'm telling you right now, none of us are able to hold to that standard and have every single choice at every single time, in every single way, under every single condition objective. That is insane. So that I agree with you. Anyone who thinks that you're always... But I think in general that there's a problem that we've done is we would like to generalize. I don't think it's right to say morality is objective. I don't think it's right to say morality is all subjective. Because every moral fact should be based on the situation, the people, the things, the assessment of value. You can't say that 1 and 10,000 is the same. Objectively, I can say it's not. So I think this is it. But to me, axiology starts at the presupposition of the one doing the ethics. In other words, like you said, there is no, if all humans die, there will be no more morals, because we make it 100% of it. So, in a sense, grasping that would mean, if you understand it the way you're saying it, you're correct. And as an axiologist, the first thing would be, it's subjective to reality, in a sense that if you remove humans. But see, that's like saying, well, love would not be existing in the universe if all living beings that felt love were no longer existing. But see, that's kind of, to me, almost like a way of philosophically saying we don't have to assess its value. Because we should assess even the value of our statements, to me. Is the statement I just said a morally true statement, a beneficial statement, a worthy statement? Because I don't see axiology as just limited to good. I see it good, worth, value, it has beauty, it has to do with beneficialness, like how useful. Because, I mean, there's a difference in useful, like vegetables are all vegetables, but yet salad, is not going to be the same as broccoli. There has to be a way of assessing this objectively. So I think that there's a problem is, the only reason, like you said, the reason why there's this humongous thing about objective and subjective is really not because atheists are having a problem with understanding how to apply morality. Because if there was, then there would be some drastic murders and mayhem, everywhere. So like you said, it's very astute that you brought that point up. The only reason we have this objective, subjective thing really to the extreme level that it's done, it's not really because of philosophers. To me, I agree with you. It's because of religion. It's because the religion is hijacked, or attempted to hijack morality 100%. It's almost like and they always say all the time, without God, without this religion, how could you possibly even know how to be moral, Really? You would burn and torture children if you didn't have a God tell you not to? What if a God tells you to do it? Would it be moral then? So to me, they don't even have an absolute to themselves. Because they're liars. They're saying they're objective, then they're not, because you and me both know everybody's made this up. And then, in a sense, we can make objective positioning in that subjective reality. In other words, like I think the axiology, the concept of cup, right? The concept of cup is a thing that can hold a substance well, in a sense, usually liquid. If it has a hole in the bottom, it's not a good cup. That's an objective fact you and me both can agree on. And in a sense, we can use that, to me, I agree, we can use that, though, that of those objective facts to then position, well, then we know certain things because it's usefulness. Because a cup given to a fish is nothing. You put it in its fish tank, it's just another weird-looking rock, in a sense, to its concept. Maybe it understands more, maybe it could, but I'm just saying in general, though, so its goodness, the goodness of a cup to us, or goodness of a car, or a goodness of, let's say a tool of some kind, its goodness, though, is positioned to its particular use. So, we could say screwdriver, flathead screwdriver is a great tool. We could axiologically say it has a bunch of uses, but see, it's not good as painting. Although you could paint, a whole wall with just a flathead screwdriver. It would take you forever, but it's possible. But see, that would be an improper use, and we can both say, right, that that's not a good use. We can axiologically say that is not a good use of that tool. And to me, that's how some morality, in a sense, that's not a good use of your social behavior. To punch people in the face or to call them names or whatever. It's not because it's hurting the social cohesion. And the problem is you are always living. You cannot be outside of, in a sense, unless you live somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Alaska or something. I mean, in a sense, you're always dealing with people, so we have to have morality. There's no way that we can choose to, in a sense, not, because the moment that you choose not, you've just committed a moral violation, in a sense, or ethical violation. It has a moral, what I mean by that is a moral, error that's now allowing you to cause ethical violations, is what I really mean. And we know, you and me, that axiologically the presupposition is you stopped valuing. Then because you stopped valuing, your morals changed, thus it allowed you to then make ethical harm to others, in a sense.
Yeah, so when you reject the idea of objective ethics or objective values or objective morality, then you have a problem of what they call the relativity of value. Are all values relative? And you use the word subjective. Are all values subjective? Is everybody free to have their own idea about anything? And are there no moral principles that you can use to gauge whether one value is more valuable than another? And that's a problem that atheists have to deal with because there isn't an atheist ethic that's commonly accepted, and so religions, like you said, the religions have commandeered the field of morality. And have everybody thinking if you don't have religion, you don't have morality. And so atheists have it's almost like a public relations problem.
Good point.
We don't have God, so what do you have for morality? And that problem hasn't been settled. The problem is still totally up in the air, and there's many different voices saying many different things. But we don't have a settled solution for that. Like the Christians have the Ten Commandments, and they can say, "Here's our morality. What do you got?"
Exactly.
And we can't say anything, but it's up. Everything is up to you. that's not a responsible position, and so we have to deal with that problem. And I think for me, the only solution to the problem of relativity of values is that you formulate principles and then you commit yourself to the principles. Like, for example, this country has a constitution, and the guys who wrote the constitution, it has certain principles in there about separating powers and having powers balance each other out and dividing up areas of government. So they committed themselves to those principles, and it's just a matter of commitment. You say, this is what we're going to do, and we're sticking to it. And so the same procedure has to follow for the development of any kind of a social ethic. You have to say out, first you discuss the principles, that you agree on the principles, and then it's a matter of commitment. And commitment means you stick to it. So that's the problem facing atheists now. I mentioned the book, one of the books that I wrote, Progressive Logic. So I do that. I discuss that problem, and I discuss a principle that people can intellectually commit themselves to, and then I say, if you choose to make that commitment, then these are the logical points that follow from it, and the book is based on the logical points that follow from it. Otherwise, it's just you got your opinion, I got my opinion, and everybody else got their opinion, and we're going to fight it out, or it's going to be chaotic. And unless we have principles we can commit ourselves to, there won't be orderly thinking.
So when you say orderly thinking, are you agreeing that there are moral facts, or do you not think that there are moral facts?
Well, I'm not comfortable with the word with the term moral facts, okay? Because,
so just to give you an idea. So for me, I could say a moral fact is that it's never just to do rape.
For me, that's a principle. I see a distinction between natural science, which deals with facts, and value science, which deals with values.
Is a value a fact?
You can value facts, and it's a fact that people have values, but it's two different areas of study.
I'm not saying. I'm definitely not saying that. Even if something was a moral fact that has anything to do with science, I'm saying, because it would be about in the area of philosophy. To me, it would be, but it depends. Well, actually, I take it back. No, I take it back, because if you use it as a social science, I could see that you could say that. In other words, let me explain by facts how I see it, because I think once again, words, how they're used, really can people say the same word? Not like. To me, now it depends on who's saying moral fact, I guess, what they mean by that. But how I would see it is there are such things as moral facts. The thing is that what I would be saying is there's an axiological fact that then has a connected morality or ethic to it. In other words, if I see you drowning, right? And I'm standing there and can help you. Am I in any way morally obligated to help? If you're asking for help, can I just stand there and watch you drown? And am I culpable? Not legally. I'm talking about morality. Morally, do I have anything to help you? How about, and if you say no, does it change if you're the parent? Do you feel that a parent, can I say that a parent has an obligation to reach out and put their hand to grab the child? Or is there no moral facts that no parent is obligated morally, not legally, morally to help their child. See, I think it's an absolute, to me, everyone talks about ethics. What I never hear enough about is care ethics. I have rarely heard a person alive deny the core of care ethics. That a person who is the caregiver has a moral fact obligation to that person they care about. I have never heard someone give a strong argument about why that's not so. And I don't care what you feel your morality is. Not you personally, I'm just saying other people. Because in a sense, but see, what we're really appealing to is 100% natural. Because naturally, evolutionarily, the parent, the mother, whatever, generally has been, through a process of evolution, the ones that cared for children, their children generally survived, and thus, caregivers becomes just the model. In other words, you can't get outside of it. It's not do we care. We're social beings. We can't not care. And in fact, you can see the problem that happens when people kill people. Most people get PTSD. Most people cannot kill others and not be affected. They just can't. I mean, even people that are even psychopaths sometimes have nightmares because, once again, their moral disgust. That is nothing external. It's a fact about our biology, how our brain and whatever processes psychologically. I mean, because I mean by biology, in case people think that I'm trying to attach something I'm not. It is a fact that biologically, when we interact with other people, we feel oxytocin, we feel other biological chemicals. These biological chemicals, it is a fact, make us want to bond with others. So what I mean is, so that shows that there's evolutionary biological reasons to morality in a sense. I'm not saying they are moral. These are the core things that give us this motivation. Why everybody can't get outside of, in a sense, a moral fact, caring for their children generally, because animals do it. It's in us. We're hardwired in a sense to do that. So when I see someone violating that, I don't feel like it's a problem in a sense to say you've made a moral error, and that's a moral fact that I can hold in a sense position against people.
Mm. Yeah, well, I like what you said about moral emotions and having been developed through evolution, and I agree with that. The way I understand it, over the eons of evolution, people who contributed to a group had mating privileges that people who were antisocial didn't have. So that gradually our brain was developed for moral emotions, to feel like making a contribution more than to feel like stealing all the food that the people have gathered and keep it for yourself, I think that group supportive behavior was favored as a mating principle, and that antisocial behavior was disfavored as a mating principle, so that human breeds were bred like you breed cattle. Human beings were bred to have moral emotions and to have a sort of a moral attitude. Not any specific principle, but just the emotional attitude, the tendency to all the things that you said, to understand that taking somebody's life or torturing somebody or rape, that there's somehow it runs contrary to your feelings, even if you don't have a principle. That's right. It runs contrary to feelings in most normal people.
Yes. Even some non-normal people, I was saying, still suffer. So that we still are obligated by this biology, by this evolutionary thing. And so when they say, that's why it's odd, because in a sense, they're asking a nonsensical question. How do you do morality? We should, in a sense, go back. How do you not? Because, in a sense, everyone would at least agree to care ethics. Because, like you said, it's almost pro-socially. We have no. In other words, also to me, there's health benefits for caring. There's health benefits for being pro-social. There just is. I mean, it's already been proven. So there's a lot of benefit to do it biologically. It makes us healthier. It improves well-being. It improves our social, cohesion with others. Which is this is also another point, like you said about antisocial. Not only do you not mate, but we already know that the more that you're antisocial, the more it almost creates a mental imbalance. You know this because put someone in solitary confinement. Do they come out normal? They usually suffer in there by themselves. So it shows that we're so social beings that our isolation harms us psychologically. So, in other words, you could give a person in solitary confinement all the food they need, all the water, all the air, even give them the largest space they want, but all by themselves. They would still suffer psychologically because we need humans. We need other people. It doesn't mean that everybody needs 1,000 people. Sometimes maybe you only need one. But boy, when you have, and it doesn't have to be even like, it doesn't have to be a mate. It could just be a friend. How much we really need social cohesion. So, like you said, because we need social cohesion, it automatically, to me, means we need values. Once we need values, we need to apply the ethics. In other words, to me, ethics is the end result that you had a good axiology. You valued things and people, and then you treated others accordingly in an ethical way. So that's why I think it's very important to become an axiologist, or at least to understand and utilize axiology because of the benefit it gives to your entire life.
So I agree with a lot of what you've been saying about the biological benefits and the biological suffering that you have from isolation, and the benefits of more health and happier life and that sort of thing around other people. And I would take that as a baseline against the charge of relativity of value.
You're right.
I would take that biological experience as a baseline. It's not easily proven, but it's intuitively apparent, and using that emotional baseline, I would say, so how can we develop principles that can be logically and articulated and agreed to, that are consistent with the intuition, the biologically based intuition. That's a beginning point, but then you have to elevate that to an intellectual level where people can discuss a principle and analyze and criticize it. And then you have a moral system when it's something you can articulate with principles that you can make inferences from and deductions from and criticize. So I think that's a second problem based on all the things you just said about a biologically based moral tendency in people.
Yeah, and I have a degree in psychology, so this stuff really interests me too. And that's actually how I started to get into axiology to begin with. I went to school to be a drug and alcohol counselor. That's what I thought. I was a truck driver. I had been injured, didn't really feel that great, didn't want to do it anymore. Eventually, I went back to try it again, but then I had to quit because I just couldn't do it. But when I went to college, they started talking about ethics, and I became an atheist in college. But then when they brought up ethics, I started now thinking, like you were saying, like, well, how do we know that? Or how do we get value? Or how are we sure that we're not just equally wrong? Or how are we sure that it's not good to, do this or do that? I started really like, wait a minute, especially to me in the class, they told me, pick the ethic that you like. That did not sound ethical. What? Mm-hmm. Because I was like, well, there was a big problem because in the class they didn't go into any in depth, but they showed us the different types of morality, and some of them were completely contradictory. So how can that be possible that we can pick any of them? And then I said, there's no way of judging which one is better than the others. I'm not saying that one is right, everyone else is wrong, but can't we say top 10, like this is the top, and then these others are, honorable mention or whatever, or still acceptable, but may not be the best choice. I mean, there's no way to evaluate morality. Oh, no, that doesn't work for me. No. That's why I started looking. Yeah, no, that doesn't. Well, even if it's relative, how do we know that relative's not wrong? I mean, it bothered me. So I started looking into epistemology and axiology. And once I found axiology, I go, okay, this is a lot better. Plus, I was also at the time saying I was a spiritual atheist because I thought spiritual meant you had morality. I didn't. Or you could see morality by connecting the value of things in the world. Once I had axiology, I want to be spiritual no more. I got this new, better world. This word that actually is talking about really, substance of what I want to talk about. Then I found out that there actually was axiology and atheism together. It wasn't something that I made. It was something that someone else had already talked about. So I was like, wow. How awesome. I never even heard about this term, and then there's actually a whole philosophical way of thinking about it. This is cool. And then I started doing more searches, and that's when I found you, and I thought, oh man, here's someone who's talking all the same stuff, and he's saying, and I know he's got to be an atheist because I heard what he said about God. And so that's why I'm really, honored to be talking with you now.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
And so, and I really, I push axiology on this general public now because of my atheism, all the time. And I've put your name out there a whole bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a great guy, and I think that you're an asset to our community.
Oh, thank you.
The atheist community, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you might be surprised. You only have 300 friends now on Facebook or whatever and stuff like that. You might be surprised. After this video, you may have a few more, if you want.
Oh, well, that'd be nice. Yeah. I'm a member of a atheist or non-believer, they call themselves, group called the Center for Inquiry, and they just merged with what's that? The scientist, the selfist Gene.
Oh, Richard Dawkins Foundation.
Yeah, the Dawkins Foundation.
Yeah.
That's right. Our organization just merged with the Dawkins Foundation. And so I'm hoping that out of that merger, some effort will be made to try and develop a set of ethical principles that can be attached to atheism and socially acceptable and show some moral leadership. The atheists don't show moral leadership, and religion claims to have the position for moral leadership. So if we want to succeed as a belief system, we need to develop a set of principles that will demonstrate moral leadership to people.
Well, and even like you said, belief system.
Somebody's not going to do it.
Well, even like
Sorry?
True, and I agree with that totally, and I would like to be involved with it. That's what I've been trying to do on my own. I've been trying to instill in people the value of actually caring about values, and caring about morals, caring about ethics, caring about how we treat other people. That is totally what I'm about, and that's why I totally, like I said, I feel like you are an asset, and I want to be an asset too, not because I want to be famous or anything, because I really care and I want to make a difference, and I really feel like that like you said, we need people to stand up and say, fine, I'll be an example, I'll be a leader, I'll be whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, I'm not, but I'm willing to try to stand up and say, this is what it's right to be a moral person as best as we can. We have flaws, but I mean, there's a difference between. In other words, I feel everybody makes a difference. Everybody. Whether it's good or bad, everybody's constantly making a difference in the world. So I realized, well, wow, I can make my difference positive if I choose to, and I want to. I can make mine be impactful to where I not only become a leader, but build leaders. That's what I want to do. You talk about moral leadership. I want to make everyone their own moral leader. To where people feel empowered, it should be a pride to say I'm an atheist. I'm a person who lives by, ethical standards that are naturalistic. I mean, what other can they be to me but naturalistic? I mean, we can't appeal to God, and why would we want to? Even if they could appeal to religion, why would you appeal to religion, which is inherently subjective in all ways, when you could at least start with some naturalist things that are objective to everybody? And even if people try to say they're subjective, I love this when people are solipsists. Well, how do you know reality is real? Okay, well then what are we talking about? Mm-hmm. Because they themselves are saying that it's not real. But if it's not, then to me, everything pushes back to a pragmatic, axiological thing. Then we behave as if it is real, since it is all that we know. And it would be safer, almost like a twisting in a sense. What's it called? I can't remember now. But it's where people try to say, well, if you believe in God, you're better off than being an atheist. I can't remember what it's called now, but in a sense, it's better off to live ethically with value, assuming the world is real, because it's all we have, than to live as if the world is fake and it actually be real, then we were wrong, and then we've actually committed harm. So to me, this also brings up another thing. Let's just assume that the world to them is fake. But we know that we are psychologically in this world affected by even theoretical ideas. We are. We can make a theory that God's a theoretical idea, and people are terrified. How about people like even Reformed Catholics sometimes, right? Live with guilt, popping up in their life. It's all indoctrination. You were taught this concept of guilt, and then it's been attached in them, and it was, the God concept removed, but this guilt stayed attached. So it's not the way, to me, just like the people talk about the golden rule, that's a religious moral. I don't value that at all. Because I actually understand values, and I understand, so to me the God moral says what I like then becomes morals, or ethics. The problem is, it should be the value. It shouldn't be what I like. I mean, I don't like, let's say, liverwurst. I would never produce that as a food. but my like makes no difference in other people's use. And it shouldn't. But no matter how much I don't like it, I despise it. I wouldn't use the animals. But the point is, because I hate liver, but the point is, that's not an objective fact in the world that liverwurst is bad. That's just me. So once I can identify the difference between my personal and something else in the world, then I can start applying things more. So, but see, the morality of the golden rule says, "Do unto others as you would do unto you." Yeah, but there's people in different places of the world that "do unto me" might mean kill my children because they believe in honor killing. It might mean allowing rape of captured victims, as it does in Muslims countries, some of them, especially with ISIL. So, in fact, I heard a female Muslim woman justify that she agreed that men, by the Quran, have the right to rape all the females. And then they said, I heard someone talk to her and say, "Well, you're a female, would you?" And she says, "If I was captured, then that's something that I would expect." That right there shows, just like the same thing. What if someone's 16? Do you want a 16-year-old deciding what the problems of the world? Do you want to go to war because of what a 16-year-old? So you do understand that their value, we can all look at and say, maybe we shouldn't. Or how about, someone who's 5 years old? Would you let someone 5 years old? Because do unto others, do unto you, whatever they want to do, would that be okay with us? No, it would not. So to me, we already know, that's why I say that we already know that intelligence has to be a factor in morality. So does moral development and moral reasoning. Because morals is not like you said, it's not like some external thing we go find in the world. Oh, look, there it is, there's morals. No. So it takes the process of thinking and reasoning to be able to do it anyways.
All right. So I totally agree with that. And so the problem that creates is then what are the principles you're going to use for your moral reasoning? Moral reasoning is necessary, but how is it possible without certain principles that you can agree with? And that's what I wrote about in that book in Progressive Logic was a basic moral principle consistent with the biological tendencies that you talked about, and then the implications of that moral principle. Let me just say what that is. So I start with a principle, and it's just an analytic principle. It's not something that you have to believe in, and it's that all people always deserve positive regard. So the short version would be all people deserve respect, right?
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that that's an obligation. I'm saying that's an analytical principle.
Could I just stop one question and ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you mean by persons? In other words, I agree with that axiologically for even my thinking, although persons to me could mean elephants, could mean but I'm saying, depending on, because I would call those, for me personally, just so people listening, I think that those, if you reach a high enough level of awareness to me, I start to treat you different than animals that have a lower awareness. So I have a classification for me would be people as humans, and then have non-human persons, which would be high-level animals, and then I would have low animals, and then I would have animals without feeling. Because there's some insects that actually don't feel pain. I would thus axiologically put them near the lowest level, and then animals that have no awareness at the lowest, and then things that have no awareness at all below that. As far as an axiological structure of where to place value. That's all I was saying. So for people that don't know, I know you probably already have this concept. I'm just bringing this out so people that are listening know when you say persons, I am assuming you mean humans. That's all.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a very important point because, like in biology, the axiology that I use distinguishes between humans as one category, a biological category, and other categories of organism. We're an organism,
right?
But we're the human organism,
right?
And so, I think it's important to distinguish between the human organism and other organisms. Other organisms you can love, right? I mean, you can love your dog, you can love your cat, you can love your car. And so there can be a distinction, and that doesn't mean the other classifications are worthless. You know, I'm not saying dogs or elephants are worthless or cars are worthless, right. But there's the human category, and that stands by itself. Other categories you can have feelings about, but it's not the same as the human category. So the human category is the center of value. You know, Karl Marx once said that man is the supreme being for man. And so, without agreeing with everything that Marx said, that principle, for me, is a basic ethical principle, and you can build other principles or derive other principles from that basic principle.
I agree. I was just, I wasn't saying you were thinking anything different than what I agree with what you said, everything you said. I was just wanting to clarify. I wanted to clarify persons, that word, persons, because I know in a sense what you mean by that. I want to make sure everyone else,
Well, you know where this is a real big problem is at the abortion issue.
Yes, it is.
And so I talk a little about that in my book.
Could you talk about it now? I mean, real quick. Can you talk about it real quick right now?
Yeah. Well, I go along with the Supreme Court decision in Roe versus Wade. But the problem is, a person is how do you define a person? Because the anti-abortionists define a person at the moment of conception. And they talk about baby killers. Now this is a word problem because baby is something that sits on your lap and goes goo-goo and da-da. And it's the little thing, That's a baby. And before that, there's an organism growing within a woman, but if it's still an organism, it's not viable outside the womb, it's not a person. So the problem of defining what is a person, for me, is the central problem for abortion. And so the Supreme Court sees a person as a fetus that can live outside the womb. And you start from there.
Yes.
And then you got a person.
Yeah, well, and see, I as far as the abortion issue, you almost said exactly what I think. My feeling is this: it doesn't become an axiological issue of that being that's growing, that organism turns into a being. I think let me explain. First, I think it's just a bunch of cells. Then it becomes, in a sense, an organism. Then it becomes, in a sense, to me, a being, a beingness. But it's still not, in a sense, a person. It's becoming that. Like you said, the problem is, it's a gestation. So, yes, at some point, before leaving the womb, this thing turned into something. But their problem is, they are acting like it's this thing the whole time.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's not. So, my first thing, so there's the same point where I stand. Nothing is axiological to me. I have no regard for that set of cells being whatever until axiologically it experiences pain. Once, to me, that being experiences pain, to me, it starts to get personhood. In other words, we need to start treating it as something closer to human than it just was before, for me. Because now it's in the realm of experience. And then we build most of, to me, our morality, in a sense, is a juxtaposition of its pain level, its pleasure level. And I'm not saying that everything is hedonistic or something, but in the general, like a lot of our stuff could be grouped kind of loosely in those categories, in a sense, what we do to harm or help, So it's really important, I think, to clarify all this stuff like we are. And then it's really important, I want to give out to atheists because, like you said, we don't talk about it. And the issue is that the lie the religion and God believers do is that somehow they have a magic bullet, this or lucky charm or something that allows them to jump over all the axiology they need to do, all the, moral reasoning they need to do, all the ethical application they need to do, and just say, I do it because of something. I mean, no, you don't get to do that. In fact, even if your religion and God, I'm just saying, to me, let's just say your religion and God are all true. You still must do all the axiology, in the sense, and all the moral reasoning, and then all the application ethically. So you're not under any less obligation than anyone is. So we're all, in a sense, I think, doing atheist, really, morality. Because, in a sense, most people don't really appeal to the exact words, every word of the Bible, because they'd be killing more people. I mean, it's just... Yeah. So the fact you're not killing people, the fact that your women are allowed to talk inside of churches and become pastors, the fact that, that, like you said, that constantly the Catholic Church changes, I mean, you look at it's a joke. They don't have morality. The truth is, they never did. And like you're talking about is because they acted as if they could deny the axiology and just state things as true. They can't.